Before the next episode of X Job Downloaded starts, I have a big favour to ask. If you've enjoyed any of our episodes so far, please can you click on the follow button on your platform. I'm on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon and YouTube. It costs nothing to follow, but makes a real difference to me as a podcast producer. Thank you. This interview is being tape recorded. My name is Paul Maleary and this is X Job Downloaded. And today I'm going to interview Steve Davies. Now, Steve Davies is a former member of the military and he now renovates or restores graves of military personnel. Have I got that right, Steve?
Mostly pre-1914 military graves, and also where possible community graves, where people have died in like bombs or accidentally in certain sorts of scenarios.
Wow.
And also I do clean some civvy graves. They generally give me a donation for it.
Where did it all begin for you? I know you've done 2 tours of Northern Ireland and you served with the Royal Green Jackets, but how did you get involved in the military? What was the motivation to join the military?
It was the 3rd Battalion, the Royal Green Jackets, which is important because we don't like the other 2. We were known as our nickname was the Cowboys. The first nickname was the Farmers, and the second the Handbags. So Coonsey, who you know,
Yes.
call him a handbag next time.
A handbag, I will do.
Yeah, he'll like and not like that. And collectively, the regiment was known as the Black Mafia because we supplied a lot of the top generals in general staff for years and years and years.
Oh, really?
And the past CDG was Sir Nick Carter.
Yes.
Who was my platoon commander when I was in.
Wow.
But basically, I started out, I was a scout. I then joined the Army Cadet Force, and I wanted to become a soldier all my life. And I joined at the age of 16 and 4 months old, the Infantry Junior Leaders Battalion in Shorncliffe in Folkestone in Kent, which is you basically join as a junior soldier, and they train you to be the future NCOs of the Army, non-commissioned officers.
Yep.
So about 80% of it is military training for a year, and 20% education. So you get better grades on your stuff you do when you left school, and also the Army education side. I then left, passed out there, and I joined a training platoon at Winchester in its last 6 weeks, which is typical for junior soldiers to do. Much to the annoyance of the existing training platoon that have been going through for 30 weeks. And me and Gaz won a prize as best battle partner.
Wow.
Which really upset the existing guy that was in the way to win it. And he still talks about it now.
Well, he talks about a lot of things now, doesn't he?
Still upset with me 47 years later.
47 years.
It's a long time to hold a grudge.
Yeah, it is. Fantastic. So you're at Winchester and you
sorry. I then joined my battalion in Berlin.
Yep.
In 75, and we had 18 months left of a tour there, which was in the days of the wall. We used to guard Rudolf Hess. We used to do various stuff going across the border, guarding the border. Really weird time in my life because I was only 17 and a half. And basically, I became a pretty good alcoholic because it was so booze was so cheap and so subsidised. You could buy 20 cigarettes and get drunk for £1.
Wow.
That's how mad the place was.
Yeah, it was a different era. Did you get to see Rudolf Hess?
Oh, yeah, a couple of times. Yeah. But you weren't allowed to talk to him. If you talked to him, he would he'd stitch you up to the civvy guards and you get into trouble. So he used to have every I can't remember the time scale, but we used to do a 48-hour guard at the prison. And we were put in the watchtowers, of which there were 5, and he would guard them most days. And you marched out past him and he would look at you and sort of try and elicit a comment, but you knew if you said anything, he'd stitch you up because that's all he had in his life. And the French would then take over, then the Americans would take over, then And his worst nightmare, the Russians would take over.
Yeah.
It was the only reasons the Russians, apart from diplomatic, could get into West Berlin. And of course, they were quite nasty to him.
It's interesting because as a 17-year-old, did you realise the significance of Rudolf Hess?
Absolutely, yeah. We knew exactly what we were doing and who we were looking after, and his story, and how he parachuted over Scotland and tried to negotiate some sort of surrender, which was not, ratified by the High Command or the chap with the dodgy moustache.
Mm.
And he was the only man in that prison, the whole prison that we guarded, and it was basically I think he outlived all his inmates by probably 10 or 12 years. I can't tell you exactly how long, but I did understand the significance. Yes.
And because
it's a car park and a set of flats now.
I was going to say, because as soon as he died, they demolished it, didn't they?
They did, yes, yeah.
Which is fascinating in itself, because he.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, he was an occupant at the Tower of London for a few days as well, and in the bar they've got a signature on the wall. One of the beefeaters thought it'd be a good idea to get him to sign a piece of paper, and they've got that on the wall in the bar there, the keys. Fantastic. So you've done your time in Berlin and you've burnt your liver out.
Yeah, burnt my liver out, and we got in trouble with the High Command. They thought we'd be naughty boys, and we were. We just were, because we were able to. We were enabled. Then to think that the cost of a large spirit was the equivalent in today's not monetary terms. It's about 4 or 5p.
Wow.
So large Bacardi and Coke was like 8p. Sometimes the actual mixer was more expensive because it was so subsidised. So what do you expect?
Well, yeah. The army marches on its stomach.
We were given a punishment, what we termed as a punishment posting, to a place called Caterham in Surrey.
Yep.
It used to be the guards depot years and years ago.
Yep.
Before Purbright, and we were put on public duties, which is basically looking after St James's Palace, the Tower of London, and Buckingham Palace. And I did Buckhouse twice, and I did Tower of London once. And if anyone knows, listening to this, about the military, we are probably the scruffiest bunch of soldiers you've ever seen in your life. I have pictures of groups of us, and not one person is wearing the same thing. That's how, because basically we were scruffy fighting soldiers that would scrape a hole, take a shot, and go backwards,
How funny.
Sharp. We were. I mean, my regiment, my 3rd Battalion, was basically the 95th. Oh, Sharpie, that era. So that's
really?
What we were like.
We're right behind you, Sharp. That Sharp.
Yeah, so I did Buckhouse. That was boring as you can't imagine.
Yeah.
But I think, as we were talking the other day, I did the Tower of London, a bit more exciting. And I did the ceremony of the keys, where as a guard to the key, halt, pump, pump, all that sort of stuff. So that's quite,
I'm up there on a regular basis, and I still enjoy it, even after all these years. So when you are in Caterham, did you get deployed to Northern Ireland from there?
Yeah, we got deployed to Northern Ireland for an emergency tour to cover the prison officers' strike, which was in Belfast, in the RVH, which is the Royal Victoria Hospital. It's pretty in your face. And then a year later we were sent on an 18-month tour to Londonderry, which was far too long to be in the country in that state in 1979, 80, and it was not fun at all. In fact, what I did was I tried to get on as many external courses as I can back to the UK. So basically I could get my promotion line up. I was basically a course monkey. If there was a course going, I'd go and do it. Just anything, not, go stand out the streets and be spat at and have things thrown at you, including high velocity rounds,
Well, I was going to say, because your regiment did take some casualties during the Troubles.
It did take some casualties, yes. Not my battalion, funnily enough, but 1 and 2 did take a lot of casualties, especially one particular one that springs to mind when a Saracen armoured car was blown up and all the occupants as well, which is very much a reminder of like the IEDs, which is where that term came from in Afghanistan.
Mm. Yeah, I had a former colleague who was with them, and he got blown up out there, and a lot of his colleagues sadly got killed. With the Green Jackets, but yeah, I mean it's still going on out there. We just don't get to read about it anymore. There's a Is it
Go to Glasgow if you want to catch up on what's going on.
Oh, I know.
Oh Jesus, it's mental place.
It is. It's fun, isn't it? How sectarianism has.
It's all based on religion. And I'm doing a grave in a place called Motherwell, which is basically a suburb of Glasgow. Chatting to this really good cemetery manager and with some veterans I'm working with up there. And he was a really nice guy. And he said, I said, there aren't many soldiers' graves in here. He said, I'm a Protestant and I'm the only one around here. He said, and this is a Roman Catholic church. I think we found 6 graves in amongst. Should we be talking about this? It's a bit,
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Graves in amongst 50,000 headstones of soldiers. And he showed me one grave, which was from the Ibrox disaster.
Yeah.
Where Rangers fans were killed.
Yep.
And it had been smashed up.
Really?
What's going through people's heads when they think that that's right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going back again week after next. And I'm working in Edinburgh and Motherwell. I'm going up to a place called Loch Morar.
Yeah.
Where Sir Stirling is buried, the founder of the SAS.
Right.
And I'm being expensed, because I don't take money for doing military graves, but the expense will be out of my reach by the SAS Regimental Association to go and clean it.
How cool is that?
Well, so I'm taking the missus, and she's paid for her own training.
So, what year did you come out of the military?
I was medically discharged after coming back from Cyprus. I went on a run, and I sort of hit the deck, and I woke up in hospital 3 days later with viral pneumonia.
Oh, wow.
Which developed into exercise-induced asthma, and they class that as a war pension disability. So I receive a war pension, which is tax-free, and have done since the age of about 23.
That seems weird, doesn't it? Since the age of 23.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does. I mean, it's funny because I was watching a programme the other day, and if you're the victim of anything out in Belgium that's a relic from the First World War, because they've still got places in the the fields, you're entitled to a war pension from that.
Yeah.
That's 105 years ago.
Yeah, but it's still a victim of war, aren't
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when you transitioned out, 23, you're still a young man. Where did life take you from there?
I had 2 choices, really. Firstly, I went to America to see my aunt and cousins and spent 6 months bumming around there, doing odd jobs, painting, cleaning boats, having a lot of fun because they love an English accent over there.
They do.
Oh my God, where are you from? Yeah, and that's it. I didn't have to have an opening line.
Fantastic.
And we just had a load of fun out there. I came back, and funny enough, I've always been a natural salesperson, so I thought I'd go into sales. And I looked at selling pots and pans and double glazing, and then investments and insurance and pensions. And I looked at a couple of jobs, thought nothing of it. And I found out from a mate that there were some jobs going out in South Africa doing farm protection. It's basically, you would be paid to look after a group of guys and could protect the farm against terrorists or issues and all that sort of stuff. It was quite, scary stuff. But this guy phoned me to come into an interview at a brokerage that doesn't exist anymore in London called James Caan. I don't know if you've ever heard of James Caan. He used to be a dragon.
Right.
Dragon's Den.
Oh, yeah, of course I do. Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking I know that name, yeah.
So James called me in, and over about a half an hour interview, he gave me an 11-page sales script. This is on a Thursday afternoon. He said, right, Steve, I don't believe you can learn this in 3 days, so don't bother to come back unless you've learned it. If you've learned it, I want it parrot fashion. And 3 days, I learned this script, came back, read it to him parrot fashion, a couple of mistakes, and he said, you're in. I said, but I think you're a bit of a rough time, and I'm not sure you'll make it. I smashed all targets the first 3 months because I obviously deal well with negative comments.
Yeah.
Or badly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that basically, then the years propelled me forward. When the Financial Services Act came out, I was a regional manager for Sun Life, looking after 3 branches, about 120 people. company car, company pension, company medical, and I hated it. It's the first time in my life, apart from the army, I didn't have a salary, and I wasn't allowed to sell because of the rules that senior managers weren't allowed to sell. So I resigned, and I've been to Hong Kong a couple of times. I love watching and playing rugby. And I went to Hong Kong on a wing and a prayer and did a commission job in there for 3 months, did the same thing, from nothing, topped the charts, loved it, back where I wanted to be in the selling game. And 3 months later, my then 3-year-old daughter and wife came to join me. And I spent 12 great years in Hong Kong, eventually selling the business, although we had to buy it back. But semi-retiring from there about 18 years ago, 17 years ago.
Wow.
And came back, didn't get as much as I thought I would, and went to work in Dubai for 2.5 years, consulting, and I still do a bit of consulting now on financial services products or group employment products, things like that.
You see, there is massive life after the military, isn't there?
Of course, there's massive life. It's just, the army was my life, and it was like your thing, the ex-job. You never leave the job. And I was medically discharged as a substantive corporal, which is at 22. It's a pretty good rank to attain. And it's suddenly a love affair has broken, except you're still in love. When they literally cut your ID card in half at the guard room and see you off the premises, then it's like a messy divorce, but except you're still in love, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a bereavement, isn't
it? The army did nothing for me after I left. And for 35 years, I probably did not only my close family and close friends knew I was even in the army. Never used to tell people I spent 7 years in the army. I'd never tell them.
That's strange.
Because it was just, I blocked it, stuck it in the back of my head in a compartment, and wrapped it in a suitcase in concrete, in chains, and compartmentalised it.
Yeah.
Compartmentalised it.
Yeah. Yes, it is. I do get it, and it is like a bereavement when you leave these organisations. I'm exactly the same when I left the police. I did 30 years. I gave them my warrant card. They patted me on the back, put some money in my account for my pension, and that was it. And I felt I was bereaved. But so how did you get to where you are now? Because you do some amazing things with graves. How did that all start?
I've often been conscious of Commonwealth war graves. You see them, everyone sees them.
Oh, they're amazing.
And having been to France and Belgium a couple of times, I've been to see the battlefields and how amazing they're kept and stuff. But in this country, unfortunately, they don't have the same how can I put it, maintenance and looking after. They freely admit, the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, that they, on average, will visit scattered graves every 3 to 5 years.
Right.
Which is not their fault. It's not their fault. They just don't have the resources and the money and the time. Because, you might get one church in the middle of it and one Commonwealth War grave. So I went to a christening of my niece's daughter, Beatrice. And I'm not really a godly person, I'm afraid, but I came outside to have a little nose around in a church I've never been to before. And I saw a Commonwealth War grave completely grown over. And I went and swept the weeds back, and it was a young rifleman who had died 6 weeks before the armistice at the age of 18 in the Rifle Brigade. The Rifle Brigade is my antecedent regiment, specifically the 3rd Battalion. And I got them raging up. So I came back the next day with my wife, and we cleared it up. I then took a before and after picture and put it on a couple of the Facebook groups for the Green Jackets, because I've seen guys doing that before. And I thought, that got quite a good result. I got more than 10 likes. And I thought, it's not the likes I'm interested, but it's just that I found this guy and he needed work. But I didn't really sleep well that night because there were 5 others in that graveyard, not Green Jackets, or Rifle Brigade. And I basically spent the next 6 months restoring the areas, not so much the graves, because they are the property of the CWGC, but you can do it with a bit of water and a brush. Restoring the areas of the 144 within a 10-mile radius. That was the first part. Then I went to Dover to look at a big war cemetery there, which is in a civilian cemetery. And on the way out, I looked back and I thought I saw a very dishevelled grave with the words MC on it, which means Military Cross.
Yep.
I went back, it was actually a Victoria Cross. And that got the rage up again. It was a guy called Colour Sergeant McWeeny. He was the 44th Regiment, which eventually became the Royal Anglians. He was awarded his medal, VC, in the Crimea, I think, or might have been the Indian Mutiny. I can't remember because I'm old. And I came back and basically got that restored. There were 3 more VCs there, got them restored, and then I started to search for VCs. And I now have adopted, not formally, but in my mind, 57 Victoria Cross graves in the southeast and elsewhere. And basically, there's a little maintenance plan I put in place. So I get them restored, I paint them up, I do all the work needs to be doing. Some I've had to actually repair, and I go back and visit them every 18 months, 2 years. There's about 3 on my list for this month. So that's that. Then obviously, once you're doing Victoria Cross graves, I started to notice that there were military graves, especially pre-1914, of guys that had not died in battle, but had died of old age.
Yep.
With amazing stories. I mean, amazing stories. If you go on my Facebook group, Military Grave Restorer, for an hour or two, I'm sure you've read some. Some of them are just mind-boggling. What these guys did and didn't do and died of old age, generally by the coast, because, lots of people used to retire the coast in those days.
Yeah.
Dover's got hundreds. Brighton and Hove, hundreds of fantastic stories. But I found a bugler from the Charge of the Light Brigade, last survivor of the Battle of Walsdrift. I found the last survivor of the Battle of Waterloo with a photo of him. He died at the age of 101 in the Caterham Asylum. I mean, that's amazing. They're all out there. They're just all out there. It's unbelievable.
That's amazing. With the VCs, I assume that most of them are posthumously.
Not all are posthumous. Probably about. I couldn't give you a guess, but probably a third are posthumous. It says it's a guesstimate. I couldn't tell you without going and checking it. But yeah, a lot of them are posthumous, but a lot, because when it was first awarded the Victoria Cross in the Crimean War, basically Queen Victoria put it in for there to be a gallantry award for all ranks,
right?
From private up to general.
Yep.
So the first actual awarded or gazetted Victoria Cross was a guy called Rear Admiral Lucas Davies, who is buried in Merryworth, and I've cleaned his grave. And he was during the beginning of the Crimean War. He was on a ship bombarding the coast of Denmark, without checking, and a replying shell from the fort fell onto the deck of the ship. It's fizzing. He picked it up, chucked it overboard, and it exploded in the sea. So he was immediately promoted to lieutenant and gazetted for the VC. But he wasn't the first to be actually given the cross, because when they lined up, I think in Regent's Park with Queen Victoria giving them out, there were quite a few of them. And I've done the first to be given as well, a guy called Raby, R-A-B-Y. His grave is in Portsmouth, which I did about a month ago. So there's some important people out there. And these stories are, they're out there if you want to look for them. Mm-hmm. What I try and do is bring them to the forefront. So the researcher I work with the most, or two really, are Hilary Chalice, who lives in Worthing, and Jane Robinson, who lives in London. She is like MI6. She can find anybody. So Hilary writes up the research, which she finds. She's got all the tools, and she's also an ex-BBC journalist, so she's good at it. And Jane tries to find the family, and she's bloody good. She should have been a detective for the Serious Fraud Squad, because what she can't find out doesn't exist, as far as I'm concerned.
Do you actually speak to the families of these good people?
Oh, yeah, I do all the time. Yeah. I phone them up with the line, "Hello, you don't know me. My name's Steve Davies. I'm a fallen soldier, and I clean and renovate war graves of military people. And I found a relative of yours. I also sometimes say, if they're a bit reticent, I say, you haven't won the lottery, nor have you inherited anything. Well, you have inherited something, actually. Yeah, this is your great-great-uncle. So I like doing that a lot. And I find some lovely people. I never ask anybody for anything. Occasionally, someone might offer me some money, a fiver, 50 quid, 100 quid, sometimes, but it's very rare. And then I basically get their email address. I send them a before and after email, and I'll research and let them get on with it.
That's really cool. And how did you have to qualify as a restorer?
Well, I started doing it from YouTube and watching the Americans. Lots of Americans are into looking after graves. And I learnt my skills by basically practice makes perfect and all those sort of things. But I was getting some pushback about 3 years in from councils. Churches, no problem. Anybody can do a grave in church, they're happy. But in councils, they want you as a qualified NAM or BRAM stonemason. So last year, I approached the Veterans Foundation, which give grants, I think, for this. I said, look, would you mind sponsoring me to do a BRAM course, which basically I took all the qualifications I could to get as qualified as I could. And the actual course was easy because I was doing it anyway. It was mostly to do with health and safety, method of statement, and risk assessments.
Yeah.
And also to put a brand new memorial in. Even though I've never done one, I never will do one, you need to know how to do it.
Right.
So did that, and things opened up. I still have a couple of problems with a couple of cemeteries, but what they don't know, they might know now, which is a good thing, is I also have a Ministry of Justice tested inspector certificate, which means I can condemn graveyards and graves. So if they really upset me, I go around there with some yellow tape, mask it all up, and say, right, that needs to be repaired or laid flat. You need to contact the family within 12 months. So if they want to play hardball, I'm quite happy to do it. And also with certain stuff, I'll be honest with you, I don't mind saying it live. I'm verging on certain graves to do. It's better to seek forgiveness than to ask for permission, because some people are just ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I agree. I sit in that camp as well. It's easier to say sorry, isn't it? Once you've done it.
Yeah.
Do you get approached by families?
I do. Yeah, they do come to me. Quite a few. I had one last night. Lives about 20 miles from me, and said, "Look, was shocked to see how bad my family grave is," and I basically would charge them for a donation or whatever. And I really, really am as cheap as chips. Because at the end of the day, I see it as a service. I don't see it as a commercial exercise. And I just cover the cost of my petrol. If I have a sandwich, what the cleaner costs, and I might add, I try to add anything. But some of these graves do require a lot of work, and do all require more than one visit. So you can work it out in your own mind what basic. But I see some of the quotes that the commercial guys do, and they're a lot of money. And people must say, well, is it worth it? Because the days are gone when families used to, zip up on a Sunday to scrub up grandma and grandpa.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. So you must get a real buzz out of doing this work.
The biggest buzz I get now is mentoring and training veterans, and that's one civilian who was on that BBC breakfast show thing, not on the sofa with me, but in the interview, Lee. The biggest buzz I get is seeing their faces and their enjoyment when we've completed a project. For instance, in Great Yarmouth, there's a guy, he won't mind me mentioning named Trevor, who's a lovely, lovely guy. He's got a lot of history, because I deal with charities that look after veterans who are either in the criminal justice system in some way, shape or form, and or have mental health issues.
Right.
And Trev is just, I love him. He gets so excited when we did a grave where the cross had broken off. It was covered in rubbish, and Hillary discovered some fantastic research. We found the family, and when we put the cross back on, I've repainted the lettering, which one of the girls did because they're better at it than I am. And we all stood back and we went, and I could see a tear in his eye. but it's a tear of happiness, you know.
Yeah.
And his wife says, "Oh, I love it when Steve comes because for 2 weeks after, he's in a great mood. He's bouncing around, and 2 weeks before he comes, he's in a great mood, bouncing around." So I know that it helps. And then there's another guy that lots of guys like that. I get lots of lovely testimonials. It's rewarding for me that these guys think and get something out of it. You know, the accomplishment of doing a grave which is in terrible shape and bringing the history back. And there's a guy in Dover, can't say his name, but he's an alcoholic on probation. And the first time he met me, he had a tin of beer in his hand. I said, "You can throw that away, and that's your 3 chances for it." He just met me. That's one chance. I said, "No. I'm Mayor Gooley on it when it comes to it. 3 strikes and you're out. That's 2 strikes. Having a tin of beer, meeting me to go and clean it in the graveyard." 2 weeks later, went back to pick him up again. He said, "Good morning, my name's Chris." I said, "This is the real Chris." So I haven't had a drink since that day, and I don't intend to. And he's now off it and in a good place. So I'm not saying that it's magic. I'm just saying that this works. It works, you know.
Do the probation service and the like, do they work with you? Do they?
We're trying to do that with them, but obviously it's a lot of hoops to jump through. There are people trying to work that out. The problem is it's only me at the moment. What I have to do is recruit 3 to 5 mini-me's, for want of a better reason, get them trained up in different parts of the country so that, because my insurance and my public liability covers a group of people I'm working with.
Right.
Councils, Northern Church. So that's why I have to go. So I'm going to Great Yarmouth next week for 3 days, then Scotland the week after for 8 days.
When you go to these places, what research has taken place before you arrive there?
Not a hell of a lot, but sometimes some. But then I usually will send a picture of a potential clean to Hillary and say, "What do you think?" And she'll have a cursory look, or Jane will have a cursory look. Say, "Yeah, this is a good one, a lot of good history here, and we'll move forward." Or, "No, that's a load of rubbish." So sometimes people put whatever they like on the grave. You know, when I did Trumpeter Landfree, who was with the light cavalry at Balaclava, I blew the charge along with some other buglers. There's a lot of information in this stone. I thought, I sent it to the guy I was working with at the time called Paul. And he replied, I don't know if you've listened to it, but you need to. He replied, "Would you like to listen to him speak and blow the bugle?" I went, F off. Anyway, there's a soundbite on YouTube of Bugle Lamprey talking and blowing the bugle that was sounded at Waterloo and at
No way.
There's a charge, which is recorded on one of those tubes.
Wax tube.
In 1890 at Edison House in London. It is, once you've heard it, you go, "Whoa, let's listen to that again." And it's on my Facebook group.
Yeah.
It's about 18 months ago. Look for it, Lamprey. Have a listen. Blow your socks off.
Yeah, no,
it'd be good for you to put it into this.
Yeah.
And play it because it is chilling.
Yeah, no, I will do. What's the oldest grave that you've done?
1667. 3 children that died under the age of 10 in my graveyard in Hawkhurst. The grave and the church were hit by a doodle bug in World War II and demolished about a third of the graves and about a third of the church. And it wasn't fully repaired until the mid-50s. Part of the roof had fallen on top of this grave, either side of it, and protecting it, but it was absolutely filthy and crumbling. Anyway, I looked at it, I thought, right, I can clean that. So I didn't use anything but water and a toothbrush and probably about 5 trips. And I uncovered the names of these 3 children that the local history group knew about. And that's the oldest one I've ever done.
And the most distinguished?
Probably Major General Sir Wilbraham Oates Lennox, BC, the first Victoria Cross of the Royal Engineers. I discovered him about 2 years ago in Brighton Cemetery, and the cross had fallen off and it was completely overgrown. So for 3 or 4 months, with the help of the cemetery, I got the undergrowth and everything cut back. I then started cleaning it. It took probably 7 to 8 times to clean it, including the broken cross. I then contacted the RSM of 36 Engineer Regiment and asked for some help to get the cross back on. So, because the base of the memorial weighed 9 tons, the cross was 1 ton.
Wow.
So, had a Gurkha colour sergeant come down, did a recce with me, and then they agreed to supply a JCB and four parachute squadron Gurkhas to come and put it back on. And we put 2 metal bits of rebar in the middle, holes in the top, and then we lowered it on, glued it into place with some amazing chem fix I used from Germany, and it now sits there sitting proud. It hasn't been like that for about 60 years.
So do you
They're an interesting family. I didn't reach out to them because I know they know all about it, and I thought, if they can't be bothered to contact me, you know what I've done, that's it. They're still a current lord. And there are 20 members of the family in that plot.
Wow.
Including colonels, vice admirals, lady this, lady that. And they didn't bother to contact me, so I couldn't be bothered. Because I do find that, this is unfortunate, the higher up you are in society, the less interested you are in how you got there.
That's interesting.
It is interesting and terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm very proud of my family in the background and the history but we're small fry, you know. We haven't got a big mausoleum.
I did a grave once in Horsham of 3 baronets. There's a current baronet. It's his grandfather, his great-grandfather, his great-great-grandfather. His great-grandfather was a general in the Royal Horse Artillery, cross and broken, filthy, overgrown. Took me about 5 visits, permission from the vicar. Did it beautifully. Found the email, sent an email, followed up the phone call. He told me to F off. That was it. That was the end of the conversation.
Wow.
Thought I was there for money, and I've never been there for money.
What about famous? I mean, there are a number of famous graves around the UK that are probably unkempt and, you know, over time. Is that something that...
But the most famous one that I want to do, which is why I refer back to the permission and forgiveness part, is Emily Pankhurst.
Right.
Emily Pankhurst, a suffragette's grave in Brompton, is filthy dirty. It would take me 20 minutes to clean the inscription.
How did you get the royals involved?
I work with a charity called the Remembrance Trust, run by a guy called Algie Clough, who's an absolute rock star. He's about the same age as my dad. He's a very wealthy man. He runs Clough Oil and Clough Gold and things like that.
Right.
He's married to a lady called Blondell, who's a lovely lady. She was a Queen's Counsel, now a King's Counsel. Is the chairman of the National Lottery. Very important people. And he, like me, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, decided he wanted to do what I'm doing, but fund it. So we got put together, and I do some work for him. He pays 50% of my expenses. So that helps a lot. I do probably for him 25, 30 graves a year. And I did one in Brompton, which we got under the radar. And then he asked me to do some in Dover, where he lives. So I look after the VCs there. So I did a maintenance job on 3 of the VCs, all in a walkable distance. And then we agreed and found 3 others. A private who was in the Royal Artillery, a sergeant major who was in the Royal Engineers, and a general who was the garrison commander. So reclaimed those, did the research, and I walked around with Princess Anne describing all the work I'd done there. She just loves it. She's the patron of the Remembrance Trust. I have a patron now, General Sir Nick Parker, who used to be in my regiment. He looks after me, not willingly, but because I ask. Whenever I call him, "Oh, not you again," so I try not to call him too much.
It's fascinating, and Princess Anne is such a lovely person.
Oh, mate, she's amazing. She's so engaged. Questions. Her husband came as well this time, and he was a proper good officer, well known in the high ranks as a good man. He was very good.
Tim Lawrence.
Firm hand, picture in the eye, both of them. And we talked, and then I talked to her. I said, "Look," I queued for your mum. She said, "Really? How long did you do?" She said, "How old is you?" I'm 65. I said, "I queued in what I hear, but I didn't have my medals on." I said, "I had my medals on that day. but I could not feel my feet at the end of the queue when we eventually got there after 14 hours. She said, you should try wearing cavalry boots. I'm commandant of the Blues and Royals. You try walking the nose. That's almost impossible. I look right, I saw natter about 2 or 3 minutes because all the other dignitaries, what do you do? How do you do that? I just talk to people like normal conversation. I don't think anybody should do anything different.
I agree.
Some might find that offensive, but as you get older, your kindness button doesn't get pressed that often. It's more who gives an F button, unfortunately.
What does the future look like, though, for Steve Davies? I don't mean the snooker player either.
Well, hopefully if I live, I'd like to see in 5 years, proper funding, corporate backing. I hate using my Just Giving page, because people give you a £5, you know that's all they can afford. And it humbles me that people do that.
Yeah.
It absolutely humbles me. I just wish some rich bastard would say, okay, that's a good thing, Steve. Here's X, Y, Z. Off you go and do it. Then I wouldn't have to go and plead.
Cap in hand.
I don't like self-trumpeting. About 2 years ago at the last regimental reunion, I was in the bar ordering a beer, chatting to a mate from years ago. What are you up to now then, Steve? I said, I'd go out and I'd clean military grade. Is that you? Yeah, military grade. Jesus Christ, I follow you and I comment. I know you do. I don't tell people it's me. So I did after that, but I haven't done it since.
But you've got to. You've got to.
Thing, I didn't put on any of my Green Jacket Facebook groups because I don't want to self-promote.
But you've got to, mate. You've got to.
I know everyone says that, but I don't want to.
You're going to give me all your links, and I'm going to put them in here. But of course, you've got who's the guy that was with Watford Football Club who's got bought all the VCs up? Lord
Ashcroft.
So
yeah.
Lord,
he won't engage with me.
So, but Lord Ashcroft buys up the VCs. Okay. Why will he not engage with you?
Because he's too important, too posh, he's got too much money.
Yeah, but it's a big thing. It's close to his heart. So he's got these.
Not only that, but a lot of the VC medals he's got, I've done the grades.
Well, there's a thing there, isn't there? There's
a natural affinity. Absolutely.
Of course there is. Because it's not all about their medal. It's about it's the remembrance thereafter. It's the history that's wrapped around these people.
Yeah.
And if Lord Ashcroft is listening, maybe he will engage. Maybe one of the national newspapers will engage to give you that additional support. We're really good at remembering. The Royal British Legion are probably one of the best charities in the country for remembering and supporting the British forces.
But the problem with the RBL and Commonwealth, they're now are all run by people that are fundraisers.
Yes.
And it's very difficult for you to get funds out of these people for anything. The hoops you have to jump through, the paperwork you have to do puts people off. It's like the computer says no.
Mm.
And what I really want to do is create a model that can be used around the country by veterans charities and the RBL and Commonwealth War Group, and says, okay, we've trained a guy to be Bradbridge's Mason. His insurance can look after the southwest, southeast, London, Midlands, northwest, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, all that sort of stuff. Then basically they can go out and look after, repair and maintain the most important part, maintain. Because once you've cleaned a grave, when it's been filthy for 100 years, and that's the average that these things are not being touched, if you don't maintain it, it will be filthy again in 10 years.
But
you maintain it, and the maintenance is easy. You maintain it every 2 or 3 years, because I use a product on it that repels dirt and stuff.
Yep.
And then go back, re-clean it, 20 minutes, all done. Next. That's the point.
But the Ministry of Justice today will be releasing young service personnel who need direction in their lives. And part of their direction could be doing this.
Of veterans. Of that 5%, only about half declare themselves veterans.
Right.
Because of the problems in prisons.
Wow.
That's a scary thought.
5% of the prison population of veterans?
Yep. And I know that because I go to Sheppey Veterans club, which is at the prison, Stamford Hill.
Yeah.
And I sit and talk with the governors, and we chat about things like that. And he said 50% don't declare because they're worried about someone having to go at them, especially if they're sort of 30 to 35, 40 age. So it's served in Afghanistan or Iraq.
Yeah. That is a scary statistic, isn't it?
Scary thought.
I think there are people out there that would be interested in helping you. It's just tapping into that.
My email is I answer everything.
Yeah.
But after the BBC, honestly, it took me about 10 days to reply to something at least to everybody who either commented or sent an email. And all these people want to help. I've got no infrastructure. I need infrastructure to be able to say, right, let's work on this area, let's work on that area.
Have you actually had anyone?
I run around in a 17-year-old BMW with my boot full of cleaning kit. It's not exactly the right thing.
No.
But it's a great car, it works, and I'm reasonably happy,
Do you get...
It's not fit for purpose, to be honest.
No, I'm sure. But you said that you go to a grave, to a stonemason in Colchester.
Yeah, I go. The guy that trained me, Adrian Roast, really, really nice guy. He's helping me with the Royal Engineers because I've got a bit of commercial work with the Royal Engineers Association next year. Where we're going to... I've surveyed it. We're going to clean, repair and maintain all of their memorials around the country.
Wow.
We're last surveyed in 1959, and that's going to be a 3-year job. It's not every day, but it's going to take up probably a third of my time. But that's, again, doing something I like, and I'll get paid a day rate to manage it, which is fine.
Yeah.
And I'll do as much of the work as I can myself. And when I can, I'll get veterans in to do the legwork, the hard work, the volunteers, because they love doing it. And there's a lot of Royal Engineers veterans out there. Well, they'd love to go to Brompton Barracks, which is the headquarters of the Royal Engineers, and help clean the War Memorial and the 2 memorial arches there. One arch is the size of Marble Arch. The other arch is the size of Waterloo Arch. They are big.
Wow.
They were built by the Royal Engineers in 1860 and 1880, and the Royal Engineers are not allowed to repair or touch them.
Why?
Because of health and safety, risk assessment. You have to be qualified. You've got to be this. You've got to be that. The Royal Engineers don't have that anymore.
It's really fascinating, isn't it, that we've got all these... if every village in the country has got a war memorial.
I clean a lot of war memorials. But, see, every council thinks I'm punting for business. I clean my one in Hawkhurst once every 2 years, and I've got permission to clean the surround of it. But everyone goes, your quote is the cheapest, Steve. Why is it the cheapest? Because I live here, I don't have any travel time, and I'm happy to do it just for the cost of the material.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Because I don't really believe you. But then I do some for free. I did one for the Secretary of the Rifles in his hometown. I said, just put me up, give me a bit of dinner and some wine. I'll just charge you my petrol and my
Jobs are good.
what get there and back. I'm doing it. I'm bloody good at it. I've done some really good ones, some really big ones as well.
But and equally, most graveyards in the UK will have a soldier who's been killed in a conflict. I was at Walton on the Naze during the COVID issues, and in there is the entire crew of a vessel that was sunk is buried there. They've got other people that have died in battles as well. It's just but I find graveyards really fascinating. I went to some...
Well, you will even more now. Get Cootsy out. He's got a little war memorial that he's been asking advice about, and I told him what to do. Whether he's done it or not, I don't know. But they're fascinating. They are absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, they are.
When you find people, and then the ones with more medals and higher rank, you can find information on Wikipedia of them.
Yeah.
You go, oh God! You look at the stave, you think, what happened? It's like 20 feet from the bugler, the Charge of the Light Brigade, is the second son of Lord Lucan, who was in command of the cavalry at Balaclava. Now, that second son married the daughter of the Earl of Cardigan, who was a commander of the Light Brigade at the battle.
Wow.
20 feet away. I mean, you couldn't make that up, could you?
No.
Anyways, I had called the family, the current Lucans, spoke to the current Lord, and he said to me, do you know what? It makes a pleasant change to have someone to call me up, not talk about the one that gone from the sickness.
Yeah.
I said, well, I've cleaned it with the permission of the council. They said, you done it. It didn't offer me anything. I didn't ask him for anything. But that was nice, things like that are nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Clean bad ones, like I cleaned a guy again in Hove who was in these mad empire wars we used to have.
Yeah.
And it was the War of the Golden Stool, the 5th Ashanti War, right? So for some reason we didn't like the Ashanti tribe in Africa. So we went to war against them about 5 times.
Oh, dear.
The 5th time, where this guy was killed, he was a lieutenant, I can't remember his surname, might spring to mind, was over the idea that the army commander, the British Army commander, had heard that the king of the Ashanti tribe was sitting on a golden stool. So a stool made of pure gold. So that was his motivation. They had defeated the Ashanti tribe, lost a lot of troops, no golden stool. This is like 1880, 1890. 50 years later, the golden stool turned up. It was a piece of jewellery around the Queen's neck, about yay big, about 2 inches high. So all those people died for that.
Wow.
I mean, I love history. That's mad history. But I mean, I'd love to do that with somebody. Let's go and visit his grave. His name is Brownlee. That's it, Lieutenant Brownlee. This grave is circular with a massive, massive angel on the top. And without ladders, I couldn't do the angel. I thought, no, I'll just do the inscription. I just do the inscriptions. I like things to say as
yeah.
If you're not, but I like things, if you can read it, it's important to read it and write it. So some I do like that,
And what was the history behind him?
I can't remember it because I've done so many. But basically, he was a young lieutenant. I mean, his inscription, if you find it on Facebook, probably about 2.5 years ago, there's a letter from a friend of his who wrote to his parents, and that letter is in writing on the grave.
Wow.
Saying what a good chap he was, and he died quickly, and all of these troops loved him, all that sort of stuff. And just really heartfelt thing for me to clean, and it was pretty illegible before I started.
I mean, other than Emmeline Pankhurst, is there anybody that you would think, oh, do you know what, I want to go and see that grave, I'd like to, do that, or?
No, not Spike Milligan.
Yeah, well, he said, what did he say? I told you I was ill. That was...
Mate, I'd do anything anywhere. If we weren't so at war with Russia, I'd love to go to Crimea and do Caterham's Wall, which is a big, big memorial to the Royal Engineers. It's about sort of 30, 40, 50 feet long. I'd love to go and do that. That's on their list.
And what's that called?
I think it's called Cathcart's Wall, I think. If you've got a Google there, have a look.
Yeah,
CAA, Cathcart, same word, wall or something. I'd have to go and do that. I'd like to do anything. Like you were talking about recent wars, but if your son or daughter dies in a recent conflict, then you're offered what's called an MOD grade, which is like a common war grade. So it goes round, then it has drops a bit in there. So it has a little bit of a dink in it, so you can tell the difference. But once it's in, it's the family's responsibility. Because they don't know what to do. And I do a lot of those, and I never, ever charge a penny for anything. If I see them, I just do it.
Wow.
It's basically wrong. It's wrong. There is no maintenance program in place to look after them. And I'd love to put a maintenance program in with the MOD, which would cost them a tiny percentage of what they threw away on the Ajax fighting armoured vehicle. I think it was 400 million quid.
Yeah.
A tiny, tiny bit, just to respect the guys that have died in conflict.
What about the likes of Johnny Mercer? I mean, he's...
I never spoke to Johnny Mercer. When he was Veterans Minister, he was hamstrung a bit by politicals, and now he's very vocal but he's never contacted me. I haven't tried to contact him.
No.
I'll chat to him if he called me and we'd have a meeting.
Yeah.
It would be interesting. But there are opportunities, to put people to work as well.
I agree.
Once you get that BRAM accreditation and get yourself in, you can go to a local funeral director, register yourself, they like self-employed masons.
Yeah.
So they just say, okay, here's a job, bang, we take 20%, you get 8%. So it's a job for life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's a skill. It's a great skill to learn.
I went to the graveyard in St. Petersburg in Russia in 2017.
I'm not doing Lenin. I didn't like him, all right?
Well, in there, they've got Dostoevsky, Tchaikovsky,
I like him,
Borodin. All of the famous composers are now decomposing in there, but it's an amazing graveyard. I mean, it's the great and the good of Russian arts.
History.
Yeah, Russian history and arts. And also in our lifetime, I don't think we'll ever get back to Russia, but in the church there, the cathedral, they've got all of the graves of all of the Tsars and Tsarinas.
Even the one that was shot.
Yeah, and repatriated and put in there, and it's an amazing place. But
well, I'll tell you what you need. Places to visit. Part of the brief for the Royal Engineers Association was to look in St Paul's Cathedral.
Yep.
And Rochester Cathedral. 2 places I'm ashamed to say I've never been.
No.
Anyone listen to this? Go and visit those 2 places. My God, you'll never believe the people that are buried in St Paul's Cathedral. Wellington. I mean, everybody. Every general you've ever heard of, and admiral you've ever heard of, lies in St Paul's Cathedral.
Wow.
It was mind-boggling. And I got my permission slip from the chief executive, Ken Kirk, and got it for free, which was a good one. But Rochester's a really good one as well. Just pretty, especially if you're military or in service orientated. Just go around with your jaw hanging open to see who's there. Nelson's in St Paul's Cathedral. Nelson's and Wellington, probably the biggest names in our history.
Yeah.
In massive mausoleums within St Paul's Cathedral. And I'm ashamed to say, I've never been there.
I've never been there. I live 50 minutes. I live 50 minutes up the road from it. Yeah, I interviewed a lady, Lindsay Siviter, the other week, and she's a volunteer there, and she said exactly the same. You've got to go and have a look.
You've got to, absolutely got to go.
I
mean, they charge you the combined debt of Africa. But I've got to say, no, I didn't pay. I'd say it's worth every penny.
Oh, it's money well spent, and that's our history, isn't it? We need that, and if people don't pay, then those places fall into disrepair, and
absolutely right.
It's as simple as that. But before we go any further, sir, I just got to ask you: is there anything you'd like to add, alter, or correct in relation to what we've discussed today?
I'd like to add my favourite phrase, written in a book quite a while ago, and I like using phrases. And it goes like this: neither a virgin nor a fortress will hold out for long once negotiation starts.
Oh, that's brilliant, mate. Please keep in touch. I'm going to make some phone calls on your behalf when I conclude this.
Yes, that'd be nice.
I wish you well. It's been really great talking to you, and thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure, Paul. It's been a good chat.
And I will be in touch.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.